She thought it was just a dirt road. She thought she could drive across his property whenever she wanted, because that's what she'd always done. But this rancher had a deed, a survey, and a line that said private property, and she crossed it one too many times. So, instead of calling the cops again, he called a concrete company. What this black rancher built on his own land left his HOA president speechless, terrified her lawyer, and ended up in front of a county judge. By the end of this video, you'll see the texts, the surveillance footage, and the moment she realized her shortcut was gone forever. If you've ever dealt with a power-hungry HOA, stay to the end, because this ending is one of the most satisfying you'll see this year. Hit subscribe, because HOA Conflicts posts a new reel. Life HOA war every single week. Elijah Brooks had owned 42 acres of ranch land outside a growing subdivision for almost 15 years before the houses ever showed up. When the developers broke ground on Oakmont Springs next door, nobody asked Elijah a single question about the access road that cut along the edge of his property, a dirt path he and his father had used for decades to move cattle, haul, feed, and reach the back pasture. The new homeowners simply assumed it was a shortcut for everyone, a quiet little cut through that saved 5 minutes off the main road into the neighborhood. At first, Elijah let it slide. T-truck here, a jogger there, nothing worth a fight. But the HOA president, a woman named Patricia Hughes, decided that road belonged to the community, whether the deed said so or not. And she started treating it like a public street, posting it in the neighborhood newsletter as a convenient bypass, even painting a small directional sign and staking it into the ground without asking anyone. Elijah tried the polite route first. He sent a certified letter reminding the HOA that the road was private, backed by a 40-year-old survey and county records that clearly marked the boundary. Patricia's response was a dismissive email claiming long-standing community use gave residents a right to the path, and she encouraged her neighbors to keep using it. Within weeks, traffic on that dirt road tripled. Trucks kicked up dust that drifted straight into his hayfield. Delivery vans cut ruts into the ground after rainstorms. One night, someone clipped a fence post and didn't even bother to report it. Elijah installed trail cameras not to catch criminals, but simply to document what was happening to his own land, and what he captured told a clear story. Dozens of unauthorized vehicles a week. Several residents waving at the cameras like they had every right to be there. And Patricia Hughes herself driving through at least 4 times despite having received a certified letter. Personally, he brought the footage to the county sheriff's office, who confirmed what Elijah already knew: this was civil trespassing. Not a criminal matter they could aggressively pursue without a formal court order, which would take months. He brought it to a lawyer who told him the same thing. Technically, he was in the right, but practically, enforcing it through the courts against an entire HOA. Board would be slow, expensive, and exhausting. So Elijah made a decision that would change everything. The legal system couldn't move fast enough to protect his land. He would build something that didn't need a judge's permission to work immediately. Over the following 6 weeks, with the help of 2 contractors and a small excavation crew, Elijah replaced the open dirt path with a permanent boundary, an 8-foot-high reinforced block wall running the entire length of his property line, anchored in concrete footings, with a single lock gate that only he had the key to. He didn't do it quietly. He posted his own notice in the community group, explaining calmly, with photos of the original survey attached, that the road had always been private, that he had given the HOA repeated written notice, and that as of the wall's completion, there would be no further access, period. He made sure to do everything by the book: proper permits, a licensed contractor, and a wall built entirely within his own property line. So there was no legal argument left for anyone to make. Patricia Hughes was reportedly furious. According to neighbors, she showed up the morning the final section was poured, watched the crew finish the last few feet of the block, and allegedly told Elijah that the HOA would see him in court for cutting off what she called community access. Elijah simply handed her a folder. Inside was a copy of the original deed, the county survey, his certified letters from months earlier, and time-stamped photos from his trail cameras showing her own vehicle using the road on 4 separate occasions after being formally notified it was private. He told her calmly that she was welcome to take it to court and that he'd already spoken to his attorney, who was looking forward to discussing months of documented trespassing with the judge. The HOA did in fact attempt to push the issue. They hired their own attorney to argue some version of an easement by prescription, a legal claim that long-term use of a path can sometimes create a right to keep using it. But that argument fell apart almost immediately once the judge reviewed the timeline. The subdivision was newer than Elijah's documented private use of the road. There had been no continuous use going back decades by the new residents. And Elijah had sent clear, repeated, certified objections the moment the HOA started treating his land as public. The case was dismissed at a preliminary hearing, with the judge reportedly noting that the HOA's claim had, quite simply, no legal foundation to stand on. Today, the wall still stands exactly where it was built. Residents of Oakmont Springs now drive the extra 5 minutes around to the main road exactly as the original plot always intended. Patricia Hughes, according to several residents who spoke about the fallout, lost her bid for HOA president re-election the following spring after homeowners grew frustrated watching their dues get spent on a legal fight nobody asked her to start. As for Elijah Brooks, he says he didn't build the wall out of spite. He built it because he'd asked nicely in writing more than once, and nobody listened until concrete did the talking for him. It's advice to anyone watching who's dealing with an HOA that won't respect a boundary. Document everything, send it in writing, and never assume good faith will be returned. Because sometimes the only language certain people understand is the kind you can't argue your way around. If this story made your blood boil in the best way, smash that like button and drop a comment telling me what you would have done in Elijah's position. Subscribe to HOA Conflicts and turn on notifications, because next week's story might be even crazier than this one. And if you're currently dealing with your own HOA nightmare, comment my HOA below. I read every single one, and your story might be the next video.